You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Vince.
And this is your Geek Fix.
More than ever, I get sick. When I get sick, I tend to binge watch shows a bit, or I'll binge watch a channel. One of those has always been Apple TV. I'll download. I'll pay for a month's worth of Apple TV because there's not tons of content on there. I'll download it and I'll watch a bunch of stuff on it. And I know recently I got a Classic Glue Reviews, who's one of the members of our channel, had sent a message about a show recently, just as I happened to be watching Apple TV again, which we got to get him on here at some point in time.
Yeah.
So this will be the first he'll be hearing of it too. I'll just let him hear it here on the channel. Yeah. Because he's been in almost any, if you can think of a geeky TV show or a movie, going back to, I think, the 80s. Because Weird Science is the 80s. Yeah, Weird Science and stuff. He's been in all those. So at any rate, but at the same time, we'll have to have him on sometime. But he brought it up to me. There's a show that they have that's kind of Fallout-y, which is true. And I'll get back to this in a second. But they have, there's quite a few shows I watched recently that are pretty good, geeky kinds of shows that I'd highly recommend. I kind of want to touch on a few of them. One of the first ones, the one that's not so much Fallout related, but if you're into like Dune and stuff like that, kind of a similar show is
Foundation.
One that's called Foundation. Exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
And I was actually, the reason why I decided to even start watching Apple TV recently was because the Quarter Crew guys had on some of the special effects guys from there. And I was surprised to see that they had actually kind of a tight budget. And they were sharing that. And they were saying, we had to do a lot of really kind of big things on a really tight budget. And and I was like, I hadn't really seen the show. And there's been, a couple of seasons so far. And so I went through and watched it, but it really is. It's pretty impressive. The storyline's a little hard to follow. It is kind of slow in some ways. It is very much like a Dune level show. So if you liked Dune, I think this is pretty comparable. This is that kind of a storyline, kind of an ongoing kind of trilogy situation. And interesting how they come up with sharing the story of hundreds of years that uses the same characters, either because they're being cloned or other, aspects of the future that allow them to remain in it. But it's, you watched it?
I know about the books, and I think I have the first one halfway through, I think.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So
I'd be curious to know how close it follows the books. Again, kind of like Dune.
Apparently they took a lot of liberties, and the main backlash, of course, is this is supposed to be a guy in the book. And I'm like, who cares? Who cares anymore nowadays? Yeah. I still want to watch it. For Apple TV, this is one of the biggest, selling points is to watch Foundation.
Yeah.
And it has Dune vibes because it was at the same time Asimov.
Yeah.
Frank Herbert, the guy who made Dune, they were all occupying the same space, kind of. I
remember going to the first Dune back in the day, like in the theaters, and as a kid, and being like, I was not into it.
It is a very specific
strange. It's hard to follow. But then the more recent series, though, that was pretty good. This kind of is closer to the Dune in the HBO Dune, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't HBO that did the new Dune, I think it was.
There's the movies, of course.
But the movie that came out, I guess it was a theater release, wasn't it? I guess HBO just, you could watch it on HBO. But this definitely follows that.
The series Children of Dune I had on DVD, which is also pretty cool sci-fi, but it's really low budget. Children of Dune is pretty cool. Frank Herbert is one of my favorite writers, and it sounds, of course, why not? But one of the most intriguing books I have read from him is called The God Makers, and it's a really metaphysical book. It's a short book, and basically It is how a human being could ascend to Godhood and what kind of implications that could bring to them.
That's pretty close to the Foundation idea.
I think they borrow a lot from each other.
Do they?
And of course, if you look at Dune, if you look at the Foundation, if you look at Warhammer, even like it's about the immortal emperor and like galaxy spanning stuff. It's a bit of a high fantasy meets sci-fi kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are a lot of things around that are like that. But the Godmakers is a really nice little novel if you ever want to read some very good sci-fi. It's crazy.
That's pretty good. I like that.
So what's the next one?
Well, I mean, I will say too, for those of you that actually watch Apple TV, two things. One is I'm not a fan of Apple anymore. I used to be a big defender of Apple back in the day, like many years ago, back in the 90s. But not an Apple fan anymore. I don't have any Apple. Well, I do have some Apple products, but I'm not a big Apple product person. But on the flip side, I do like, there's several other shows that if you watch Apple TV that you probably like that I'm not mentioning. I get that. There's several I like that I've been watching lately that I could list off, but I was interested in what's that?
Ted Lasso.
Yeah, Ted Lasso's a big one, right? That's probably a lot of people actually start their subscriptions because of that show. But at the same time, this thing that made me interested in kind of talking about this is the whole getting back to Fallout. If you're a Fallout fan, and you're a Bethesda fan, I think you're covered with Apple TV. And again, you can do what I did. You get the month subscription or the free subscription and just binge it all if you want. But I'm going to cover some of those shows because you're covered with all aspects in this respect. Like I said, Classic Blue Reviews kind of brought up one of them that I'll get into. But one of the first ones I think that you should start with that's related, at least to Bethesda. The people that made this definitely knew Bethesda, and the people that make this next show, I will say also, are the guys that make It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
So this is a show where they truly understand too Bethesda's everything you can imagine, anything you can think of in relation to Bethesda and their games, from the creator or the person, their CEO, you could kind of start with, which is played here by Rob. In fact, even that scene right there reminds me of the scene right here. Looks like the Bethesda. Here we go. Looks like the Bethesda announcements they did. In this case, Skyrim is kind of what they're talking about. They're really playing into, not so much Fallout, but still, they do go throughout the whole thing of microtransactions and stuff like that they make fun of, and a lot of aspects that they cover pretty well. But they definitely know this kind of market, the atmosphere itself and stuff. And I think they knew just enough to make it kind of funny. There are some that I think some of the jokes kind of fall flat, but at the same time, in general, it's fairly entertaining. I like It's Always Sunny, and it's actually Charlie's one of the creators, Charlie Day. He's never in any of the episodes I can remember, but at the same time, he's one of the writers for it. And so anyway, so if you like that kind of thing, I think this is a good one to kind of get to know, that kind of show. One about Bethesda universe itself, Bethesda universe.
Maybe Nate Perkenpal can attest to it.
That's right. Yeah, probably so. Actually,
yeah,
he probably definitely said that.
He lived it apparently. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In fact, actually, behind the scenes, if you can get a hold of, there was a behind the scenes DVD or CD that came with, was it Fallout 3? The special edition box came with it. It also came with a Pip-Boy, one of the older Pip-Boys. I might have it downstairs. I used clips of it actually when we did Nate's interview, because you get to see where they're reacting. In fact, to the carriage shooting up in the air. They're all like, and stuff, and all the problems that they're having in their meetings and stuff are all in there. So you get to see a lot of this stuff is better than actually that show that we were just talking about. It's more entertaining if you can get a hold of it. I think you can see a lot of it online, but at the same time, the second show has to do with the pre-Fallout universe, which is kind of, to be truthful with you, I kind of like that 1950s, the
atomic era kind of stuff.
Yeah, I keep referring to it as being retro / punk, retro punk. This show right here is called Hello Tomorrow, which has not only the door-to-door salesman, it had, who are trying to sell this thing for your future where you're going to live someplace. They have similar to Fallout, they have the robots things. The vehicles are very similar to these kind of floating futuristic vehicles that they have. I mean, it's a great show. This is a series, so this isn't a movie. This is actually series of shows. I didn't know anything about it, and it's hard to find too on Apple TV. Like the shows I'm covering with you right now, part of the reason I'm telling you about them is I'm afraid that you'll miss them, even if you have Apple TV, because it doesn't just pop up or it's not on the roster. You have to look it
Fallout,
up.
Man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did you see the dog being walked by the robot? That looked exactly like one of their art references. But at any rate, but the whole idea of it is that basically there's moon property, and there is actual rockets you can purchase that take you to the moon and let you move there. The whole issue is that these salesmen are kind of shifty. They're selling, something that it doesn't exist. And so they keep on telling the people, well, it's just a few months out. Your booking on the rocket is just a few months out. So people are just waiting still. And they know eventually people will figure things out. But it's great. It's a great show that way. It's a comedy. I love, again, with all of these, especially the next one I'm going to get into, the level of the detail and the props, the sets that they did. You saw them both sitting inside that car. That's a Volkswagen car. There's the one that has the two-seater where it opens, the whole front of the car opens.
Nice.
They made that where it looks like it floats on air and stuff. Yeah, all these cars and things. It's a great show. I think if you like the idea of that pre-Fallout era kind of show, that's a good one. And then if we move to the Fallout itself,
it's actually called Googie architecture right away. That kind of stuff.
It is. Oh, yeah. I didn't have a name for it before.
Googie, Googie.
Where'd that come from?
From Googie's coffee shop, apparently.
All right. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It just raises more questions.
Well, it was a style that the restaurant took over, and then everybody's like, "Oh, that looks like Googie's."
Oh,
yep.
There is a show called Silo, which is how this conversation got started. This is where Classic Glue Reviews had sent out a comment saying, "Hey, you got to check this out because the style of the Silo, which is a bunker underground, very much like a Fallout shelter situation, looks exactly like one of the ones inside the game." And part of what I'm showing you here is the behind the scenes, because you got to see. When I watched the show, I was like, there's no way that this can be a set. This has to be all 3D. Nope. They built these sets. And they had it where it literally, look how high those stairs go. These are huge. And then they have these computers that do look like hacker terminals. They have mostly green text and stuff. It really does have a Fallout feel to it in general. And again, if it's shut down, the whole idea is that generally speaking, they've convinced people too that basically they have this old retro style stuff and the 1950s things, but every now and then people find relics, is what they call it, relics, of the world before. Nobody knows exactly who built these things or how they wound up there. Like they're not allowed to find out either. And if they find relics, which include watches or things like that, and at one point a camcorder, they're not allowed to ask questions. They're supposed to turn them in. You can get kicked outside. The biggest punishment is you have to kind of go outside and clean off the camera that everybody uses to see outside, which shows this dead world. Which on the flip side, there's the people discover images that maybe the outside world isn't all dead. Maybe there's flowers and things like that. But when it comes down to it, there's so many twists and turns in this. This is like the M. Night Shyamalan of Fallout universe kind of situation. It's really impressive. It's worth seeing. If you haven't seen it already, I can't tell you too much because it is a lot about the mysteries of what each episode kind of reveals. I thought this was a good one to check out, and I thought that these were shows that I think, also, like I said, I check out of this. I normally don't watch Apple TV, so there'll be a big chunk of time before I'll check back on it, and it'll really depend on people telling me again, hey, you should check this out, you should look at it. So
I'm gonna subscribe right now after this.
Oh, there you go.
And we're not sponsored by
supported by Apple TV. In fact, I just put them down, but at the same time, but even though there's no image of me right now, I'm smiling ear to ear, and I look awesome.
I can agree. Yeah.
But if you want to tell us about shows that you're watching too, I mean, we are more than happy to binge watch some stuff. It's so hard to find good shows to watch, and I was happy I've got some things to watch right now. So let us know in the comments below. Tell us, feel free and message us about what you find. If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more, stay tuned for that, but also check out our channel, join the community on YouTube that goes by the same name, your Geek Fix.
Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at massivedmg_ and on his YouTube channel, massivedmg. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your questions, stories, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been your Geek Fix.